That your governments and advisors have misled you about, I think, most severely, and honestly frightens me, and is the catalyst for me making these recordings, is the issue of virus variants and the following issue, the related issue of top-up vaccines or variant vaccines. So let me just quickly explain. This is really, really critical to your very survival. It's quite normal for RNA viruses like SARS-CoV-2, when it replicates, to make typographical errors. That's what it does, typos. It's got a very good error detection, error correction system, so it doesn't make too many typos, but it does make some. And those are called variants. But it's really important that you know that if you find the variant that's most different from the sequence identified in Wuhan, that variant, the most distance, is only 0.3% different from the original sequence. So I'll say it another way. If you find the most different variants, it's 99.7% identical to the original one. And I can assure you, and I'm going to explain why I'm sure, that that amount of difference is absolutely not possibly able to represent itself to you as a different virus. That's what people are leading you to think, that maybe variants will escape your immunity, either caused by a vaccine or by natural infection, and it's an absolute lie. So why do I know that? Well, 18 years ago, there was a virus called SARS, which is actually very similar to SARS-CoV-2. It's 80% similar to SARS-CoV-2, and there were some experiments done last year where they found people who'd been infected by SARS 17 years earlier and asked them to donate blood, and they did, and there were tests done on the cells in that blood, and they wanted to know, were the circulating immune cells still able to recognize SARS 17 years later? And they were. They all still had memory T cells circulating around their body. That's great. That's what I would have expected. They also did a really important experiment. They showed those same people's T cells the new virus, SARS-CoV-2, and unsurprisingly to me, they recognized that new virus, and that's because the new virus is 80% similar to the old one, 20% different. So just to say again, a 20% difference was not enough to kid these people's immune system that it was a new virus. They easily recognized it as a sibling, a brother, a cousin of something they'd conquered already. So when your government scientists tell you that a variant that's 0.3% different from SARS could masquerade as a new virus and be a threat to your health, you should know, and I'm telling you, they are lying. If they're lying, and they are, why is the pharmaceutical industry making top-up vaccines? They are making them. You should be terrified at this point, as I am, because there's absolutely no possible justification for their manufacture. But they're being made, and the world's medicines regulators have said, because they're quite similar to the original vaccines, the ones that are being given now, we won't be asking them to do any clinical safety studies. So let me just say again, the variants are not different enough to represent a threat to you, so you do not need top-up vaccines, yet they are being made, and the regulators have more or less waved them through. I'm very frightened of that. There's no possible benign interpretation of this. I believe that they're going to be used to damage your health and possibly kill you. Seriously. I can see no sensible interpretation other than a serious attempt at mass depopulation. This will provide the tools to do it and plausible deniability, because they'll create another story about some sort of biological threat, and you'll line up and get your top-up vaccines, and a few months or a year or so later you'll die of some peculiar explicable syndrome, and they won't be able to associate it with the top-up vaccines. But that's my belief, that they're lying to you about variants so they can make damaging top-up vaccines that you don't need at all, and I think they'll be used for malign purposes. And if you don't wake up, that's what's going to happen, I think, during next year. I have